Uber Cube, the place where we talk about all things cube, but with refreshments. This is your host, Anthony Adams, aka Uber Bear, and today I am joined by my lovely...
Hello, it's me, Stu. Hello, Anthony.
Hi, baby.
This is a new vibe today.
We brought sandwich. We wanted a sandwich. Can you go make me a sandwich? Sandwich?
No.
Okay,
no,
thank
I
you.
will not make you a
Hi.
sandwich. No. Get the one sitting next to you to make that sandwich for you.
I will.
I'm looking for this other person that's going to be like making sandwiches and responding to this
I really
weirdness.
just want a sandwich now.
What's
We
going
need
on?
to be recording. So we have Sandwich on the line today. Chris Moore, aka we call him Sandwich. I don't know where the hell that came from, but here we are. We were calling our friend Sandwich. So Sandwich, we're here to talk about one of your cube designs, but did not want to warp the conversation entirely about like, here's my cube and let's showcase my cube. I know we do that. We do that on occasions, but I think when we dive into this cube, there's a lot of like design attributes, a lot of, I guess, curation technique and interesting things that you've taken on. And when I was writing this little outline, I just couldn't stop myself from writing questions, right? Because this cube that we're going to talk about just kept springing forth me more ideas about design, whereas a lot of our cubes can kind of have like a baseline idea or a core element. This one's different. This is very uniquely different. It's more outside of anything in our group right now than any cube we've played to date. And we're going to talk about that. The buildup is there now. Let's go ahead and get our drinks out of the way.
Sandwich, what you got for us today, fella?
Today I'm having some Southern Star double rye. For a good friend Sam brought that over one time, and I loved it and just kept picking it up.
And I am having a Voodoo Ranger IPA. And if we sound tired, that's because we're tired. We're all tired for different reasons. Let's start with mine. I had a medical device that I used to sleep with, and it broke last Sunday. So now I know what it's like to be a zombie for a week. So I'm working on the enthusiasm. The build-up's going to get there. I'm going to push through this. But I go, yay, we're going to do this. But let's go. What are you having, Stu?
I'm having the same. I got me a Voodoo Ranger Imperial IPA, and I feel fantastic.
I really
so I'm
should
sorry
just have
for
some
you.
coffee, brother. I'm oof.
Well, you know what? I'm cracking this. I've had enough caffeine
Let's
today.
Go. All right,
Let's
here's
go.
my caffeine in a can. All right.
First of all, let's talk about the name of
What
the
is
cube.
this cube? What are you doing?
Yeah, the cube is called the Exile Files. This is a cube that I designed, started as a bar cube. And I made it as a bar cube, as a 180 bar cube, just because I looked at all the bar cubes that were around, and they're all based on lesson learned, morph, whatever, stuff that doesn't take tokens or anything like that. And I said, well, what the hell can I do to make it different? And so I decided we're going to try, can you make a cube based around casting stuff from anywhere? Like Exile, Graveyard, just anything like that, anything like Foretell, Adventure, all those kind of things. Can we make a cube around this? And it was actually a pretty big success. I was very happy with the 180. And then recently, probably about a couple months ago, decided and I think, Anthony, you even pushed me to do this, but I said, no, I'm never going to do it. And to make it a 360 cube, and really, really happy with the results so far.
Well, I want to put a pin
really
right
fun.
there. This has been said before, and like I'm going to cite our good friend, Judge Bones here, and other people that have done this. I've actually adopted this. Sure, you built a bar cube, you called it 180, and it was a bar cube, and you decided you wanted to expand it. I did that with the Monopoly, where I said I'm going to make a desert cube. Don't know how to feel about a desert cube. I'm going to build it 232 proof of concept, kind of like what I did here. Gotta make it bigger. Let's double it up. Point of what I'm trying to say is it's a pretty good idea for a new cube designer, or if you want to pilot an idea outside of doing digital design. You can do this. You can build all this. Your brain trust can be completely invested in the idea of Cube Cobra. I do promote that idea. But if you're going to do this with paper in hand, right, and you want to see how the cards feel and actually see how the gameplay actually feels, 180 or like a core center cube is what I'm trying to say. Like, think of what you want as goals for a very tight-knit 180. What would that look like? So you get that built. Then you can kind of web out to the 360 or the 540, whatever you desire, right? Whatever multiplier you want to use here. But I do kind of want to talk about that because this isn't the first cube in our group that has happened out. It came out this way. We weren't quite content with it being as small as it was. We wanted more. We wanted to expand it, right?
Correct. Yeah, I decided that it was a fun cube design. I wanted to. There were more cards I couldn't run because of the bar cube limitations. With having no
Self-imposed, by
tokens,
the
no
way.
+1/+1 counters, all of those things, and I decided there were a lot of cards in here that would actually be really good in here, but I couldn't run them based on that limitation. So that's when also I made it super budget. Like it was like the whole cube cost less than $50. It was a very cheap cube. And this way I was able to also increase the budget with cards I happen to have. So I was really happy with again how that came about. And I did build this virtually first. I do that. I actually build my cubes in Cube Cobra first before I put them together in paper. So I can theory craft in there all I want.
I feel like there's some potential for the whole bar cube turning into a new cube thing, right? Because again, like you say, you're simplifying a lot of the card choices, even just based on the fact that you don't want all these extra pieces. You can, create this shell like you did with this 180 cube that can then turn into a larger project. So tell us about like that process from taking it from bar cube to this expanded version.
Well, let's do one more. That's a great question, but it is important to explain what a bar cube is.
Sure.
Let's kind of give some context. Well, I don't mean to interrupt his question.
Yeah,
no,
I think that's very important.
So what we're doing, the bar cube is whatever you want it to be. There are no restrictions; they're all self-imposed. But you may have heard Chris mention multiple times: no tokens, no counters, pretty much no sleeves. It's kind of just become the vibe, right? The element of it. People take in. Our good friend Chill MTG has bar cubes, does it all the time. Takes them in. They're not sleeve. It doesn't matter what you spend on the card. It's either you care, or you don't care. Proxy, don't proxy, whatever you want, right? People do stuff like Sharpie outwards. It's just something fun. You go to a pub, hang out with your friends. You're going to play with four of them. Going to have some nice, refreshing beverages, and you're going to play a little bit of cube, do a little miniature draft, and then just battle it out. That's the context. Now, apologies for interrupting, but it does matter.
Right, and I ended up using that to go back to what Stu said. The process was I took that 180 shell and kind of built off of that in Cube Cover. Like I copied it, cloned it, and made a copy off of that. I actually folded elements from another cube that I had. I had another 180 cube, a Jeskai cube, that was based around spell slinging and everything. So I took a lot of, casting your second spell and things like that. I took elements of that cube and integrated it into this cube because they fit really well together. And a lot of those cards made it in there. And then it was just, I did keyword deep dives in Scryfall, like looking for things that cast from exile, looking for things like you better believe I'd looked at pretty much every adventure card, every foretell card, every plot card, and put in the ones that I felt would fit what I wanted to do, my vision for the cube, which was fairly high power magic using this concept.
Now, you had an inspiration too, which I need to look this cube up. It was from our friend David Hill, if I'm not mistaken. It was Look Ma, No Hands. I think you were basically bouncing ideas off of each other, which is a cool kind of vibe to do anyway.
Absolutely, yes. Because he had announced this a while back, and I said, oh man, it was literally concurrent. He did it on his own, and I did it on my own. And then we ended up talking about it, and he developed his own version of it as well. They're very different. I've looked at the list. And I didn't use his list as for mine, but his list was built for him and his play group, which is great. That's awesome. I'm happy that they're very happy with it. That's great. I decided to really delve deep into the bit. You know what I mean? Like I decided to deep dive into the whole exile thing. We're going to have payoffs when you cast from exile, stuff like that,
Yeah.
So that
he called it. I'm interrupting again because he called it a bar cube, and I gave him hell. I'm like, I got 5 dragons walking to a bar with a moose, right? And mine was intended to spill beer on it, and math is, they're 4/4 dragon, and they minus 3/3. And all right, yeah, okay, I got it. I do that. And then I bust out his bar cube. And I asked him what kind of bar he was going to. I pictured that his bar was near basically Harvard University, and it might have had Ben Affleck and what's his face in there asking, "Do you like apples? How about them apples?" Matt Damon. Yeah. This is the type of bar.
Do you like apples?
So when we were talking about bar cube, he's up there at the I like apples bar, and I'm down here somewhere. I got a milk jug full of Budweiser in it, kind of cube, and I'm like, what the hell is this? This cube, I'm in love with it. But you're asking, I advocated for you to make it larger because I really, really wanted to get this damn thing out of a bar. It's not a bar cube. It's too much. I'm like, I don't know what kind of, I don't know what you're having for your. If you're over there drinking your non-alcoholic beverages, and yeah, keeping on an adventure, foretell, and plot completely parsed in your mind while playing these cards that are rather advanced. Sure, but that was kind of the running gag. Every time I go, "Are you sure this is a bar cube?" And what do you do at bars, sir?
I think someone referred to it as the sobriety test.
Yes, they did.
Sobriety test.
Yeah. You're safe to drive. You were able to 3-0 in this cube.
It's cool. Like there's a lot of these new mechanics around, like you say, right? I look at On an Adventure and I think of Plot as being fairly recent, Foretell has been fairly recent, On an Adventure being fairly recent, but playing things from Graveyards and Exile, certainly nothing new to Magic, but I can imagine that there was... tell me if I'm wrong, but was there a lot of support for this cube that you brought in from newer cards and newer sets?
Oh yeah. There's been a lot of newer stuff in the new sets. Especially, I like Plot way more than Foretell. I just think it's a better mechanic, and I hope we get more Plot mechanics and more Plot cards in the future. I don't know. I feel like Plot is a fixed Foretell, in my opinion. I just like Foretell. I mean, I like Plot way better than Foretell, but I kind of put all three in. That's the only one with hidden information is the Foretell mechanic. Everything else is face up. The adventure, you know what they got. The plot, you know what they got. And everything. So it is a little confusing in that respect. That's why I bought all those stupid tokens for On Adventure, Plot, and Foretell. I bought 8 of them each. I give them out at the beginning of the draft.
And I still screw it up because I'm wearing reading glasses and they're approximately 8 inches in front of me.
I think you just need to provide mats for all the players with each of those zones like separated on them. That might be easier. So.
So
I really do wish that they made tokens for things like Warp and stuff like that too. I wish they made a token.
Well, that's funny you should talk about that. So we're not like always. We haven't always been like here on the podcast. We've argued we're not necessarily the most pro external game pieces to the game, right? Outside of the Magic card, you have to start having like an energy card, and you got to have all these different external components to represent different things signaling within the game, whether or not some kind of like death touch counter and all that. I mean, I'll work with it. I'm just not passionate about it, right? Like that's something to do. But something about this cube, so to give it context for anybody playing the game, a lot of your cards are literally, you're either playing, as I have joked about his Graveyard Shift cube, where I kind of like distilled it down, said that you're either playing above ground, like Purgatory, or you're underground, and I tried to find like these three, how you're playing like a Graveyard Churn type cube. This one, you're either going on an adventure face up or something face down. There's unknown game pieces, but they do have like playmat, nice little layout areas where you now put them, so it's not overly confusing, but there is a degree of confusion, if I'm being honest, because the opponent can't track them as well as the player placing them. That is like a thing, right? And then in addition to, as you mentioned, some of the stuff when you get in the word exile and these different zones within Magic, the Commander players may even be more frequenting than we do as Cube players at times, right? They do these things a lot more, where you've got different, where your group kind of like puts the command zone over here and everybody kind of says that's where your commander goes. They kind of just have this like visual location of where it's at. This is interesting because it looks a lot more organized than I would have pictured it in my mind's eye when you described it. Once you got these game pieces, it was a train wreck when you had, when you have like a morph card and you have a manifest card, and we're like, what the shit's the difference? Like, there's chaos happening right now and how they all behave. Well, this is a lot cleaner. I think it's really interesting. This is now moved up in the rankings. I'm not going to give you the number 1, 2 thumbs up, but you're getting pretty close to like my favorite cube right now, and it's brand new.
I'm fascinated with the zonal aspects of it as well, right? Because, and I love the fact, Anthony, that you mentioned Commander, and I'll go all the way back to when we started playing and things were a lot more straightforward, and then all of a sudden dungeons start coming into it and other things. Like, man, I got to keep track of that. I just want to be able to keep track of the battlefield. But now you're talking about the battlefield, the graveyards, the exile zone, adventure zone, foretell, plot. I mean, just that by themselves is 6 zones that you've got to take care of.
We even joked about like he's going to go on Etsy. He's got to find like what do you do when Gonti takes? What do you do when Gonti takes the opponent's cards? Because one of the things that happens with these type cards, kind of like a theft deck, right? And how many times now I can count at least 2 fingers and 1 thumb that I've had a card that somebody else is playing with because they took it with their Gonti a type effect, right? Look at target player's opponent's library, exile X amount of cards, hide them from them. They no longer get to see their card, and you hope to God they give it back to you in match number 2.
Which isn't a new thing, because how many times has that happened with pacifism, that someone shuffled pacifism that was from someone else's deck into their own deck? I've lost count in the amount of times I've done that. So that isn't a new complication.
At least the commander and stuff like that, though, at least they hopefully got different color sleeves. What happens to me now is I lost my very powerful dragon, and I'm like, damn it. I mean, I even used a tutor to find this thing, and it's not even here. And then Christian goes, oh, bud.
Count your cards, kids. Count your cards.
Count your cards. But that is a complexity level when you add these external game pieces. And when I was joking about like Etsy type stuff, we did look like it would be neat because you're trying to embrace everything. You want your grip full of hands. You want your board state. And you also want to have in front of your playmats, because playmats are a little bit essential here, at least for some kind of spatial recognition. And hope everybody puts their on adventure foretell plot and whatever, right? Or warp, or the Gonti stuff they've stolen, or maybe they have a creature that just says exile, but it doesn't actually play into the on adventure foreteller plot. So I think the Etsy solution that we talked about, and it will take a little bit of scouring, it'd be neat to have like some hard sleeves in front of you. I'm not opposed to these additional game pieces. It's just organizational structure and getting people to, I guess, follow that, right? So then it's not so much that you're looking at your foretell, it's me looking across to you, and you've got your current foretell card, but it's covered up with a black sleeved face down card, right? And I can't even see that that's the foretell pile. This is something you're probably going to have to jump a little bit of a hurdle with. There's going to be some opportunity for play error mistakes.
I'm thinking of space as well. Like, playmats are only so large. Tables are only so large.
Yeah.
These are all factors.
It is possible. At least I did stay away from dungeons and initiative and all that stuff. There's no monarch in here, at least. There's less of that.
Got to add
it. I said add it all. Make it just total game pieces.
There's none of that.
Yeah, you should.
I already had enough in here. I don't need more of it. So I tried to limit it as best I could. But the idea of the cube is actually to use that exile zone as much as possible. And it is something you're going to have to trust the players to keep track of themselves. And I think most players are smart enough to figure it out. I mean,
speak for yourself.
Yeah.
Speak for yourself.
This cube is fascinating. So I'm in love with it because the cube has been testing me. Like, it's been pressing my ability to play Magic, and it's also helping me. Like, I've got ADHD, I'm just not diagnosed, but it's interesting whenever I'm actually playing from a hand, but I'm also trying not to forget that there's an effect in Exile, or maybe I should have warped this card and I overlooked that. And the one that I've screwed up the most is maybe I should have plotted that, but I paid 5 for the Railway Brawler, and when I could have paid 4. I've done that multiple times because I want to kind of segue into that. You have intentionally embraced complexity. I mean, this is a complex cube. There's no way around this.
Yes. No, 100%. I've 100% done that. It was not the goal, but it did turn out that way. It wasn't the goal to create a very complex cube, but the mechanics themselves, because of the way you have to play, it lends itself to that, unfortunately. And it is a byproduct of it. But it is a little skill testing, like I said. Because you had timing of when you cast your spells, just like Anthony mentioned. When should I plot this? When should I foretell this? When should I send this on an adventure first, or do I need to have the creature down? Kind of thing. It's that sort of thing. But I love those kind of game decisions in Magic. So it's like those are the kind of things that I love. And as I think you had I believe Gavin on recently, and it's like you talk about bringing people into a world of Magic you love. And that's kind of what I've done here with this. That was my goal, was to do that. Have you play in the space that this is kind of how I think of things, y'all, and enjoy. So
it's world building. You don't have any like direct theme. That's interesting that you would say that, because I thought about this. Cube's actually been racking my brain a lot, because I don't know how to really put my finger on the Exile Files and what this means, right? You and I have actually had some arguments about whether or not you should run Oliphant. That actually just came up recently because I said Oliphant is just that big giant dumb elephant, Lord of the Rings, pay 1 mountain cycling. My argument, my contrast to that is, where does this even fit into the... I know what you're going to say, but where does this fit into the realm of the idea of just Exile Files? Because when I go into a cube design, I I mean, I'm not saying that I don't run the ponders and the preordains and the counterspells. I'd be lying to you. I do run vintage or standard staples or things that people are quite acquainted to, lightning bolts and whatnot, right? These very comfortable, warm blankies that everybody kind of falls onto. But when I commit to a name, I follow the name all the way down the path. You and I have been teetering back and forth because, you're a mechanical designer, as I noted when we talked to Shoop and Kirby. And while you've embraced an overarching macro theme, right? This is a macro theme. I will go into the minutia of every card should have some kind of component that shouts that this is the theme with very, very little, maybe 10%, 15% of the cards will be outside of that spectrum. Again, back to the staples in order to make the cards actually be sticky. But I will force it to a fault, right? Whereas you'll have Oliphant in there and Troll of Khazad-dûm and the Eagles of who cares, right? Super Eagle.
Do you think that that's maybe a symptom of that typal and thematic cubes are a little bit more difficult to shoe into an overall design than a mechanically driven cube, just by virtue of the fact that if you want to build, as Chris has, this graveyard and exile-centric cube, you can just go on Scryfall, whatever, look for cards with those keywords, and bang, you've got at least the framework of a cube. I'm assuming that that's how the bar cube originated and how it's extended from here. So, I don't know, would you agree with that maybe those mechanical cubes are just a little bit more straightforward from a design choice?
I think this one has more resonance. I truly believe that, I'm going to cite the fact that, the Graveyard Shift, which was called the Bug Sandwich at the time, it's an amazing cube. I struggle with that cube because I don't play a lot of graveyard churn. It's not my particular forte or what I do well in Magic. And it's what you excel at. But when you put it up for CubeCon, for the votes last year, it didn't get in there, even though we have a lot of fans that aren't even in our local circle of that particular cube. This cube, however, I think has more of a draw to it. It has the bit is more declared. It's different than people are so used to people playing reanimator strategies and how they kind of always churn out, right? I mean, it's bin thing, make big thing appear, hopefully dominate game. And not that the Graveyard Shift is that, because you're putting it up again. It's nowhere near that. But that is kind of the ultimate goal, is either self-mill and get a lot of spiders, or self-mill and win games. Even my horror cube falls victim to this, right? It falls into the tropes, right? Werewolves, whatever, right? This is wild. This is almost like the sci-fi version of Magic. This is different. This has a different feeling. It doesn't feel like you have a preordained trope that you're falling into. Because plot comes from the stupid cowboy hat set. It's not nobody loves it. It doesn't feel like anybody should be wearing any cowboy hats in here. You even have cards with cowboy hats, and I don't care that they have cowboy hats, because the mechanical, I don't know, it feels more like Edge of Eternities. If you could have all this art come from Edge of Eternities, this would be the perfect fit. Or our good friend Brian's Chrome Wars, where he's embraced space, right? Lean into that robotic nature of Magic, that more... We need some reprints of some of these cards so we can get some stupid cowboy hats off, but ultimately...
Right.
Well, I think this is where sort of, again, the typal/thematic, when there's no focus on that. When you're presenting this cube, when you're presenting any cube that's designed this way, I'm not saying that you're saying to everyone, ignore the art, don't even look at the art, we're just going to color in the art for just look at the text box. But essentially, that's what you're doing. But essentially, you're kind of taking that approach, right? Where the only thing that matters is the text box. It doesn't matter what type the creature is. It doesn't matter really what set it comes from, if there's an overarching theme for the set. So maybe there's just such a huge amount of freedom that you have, and especially with
his freedom, that is always been his freedom versus me.
Well,
I will 100% not. I do not care about the art. The art. I mean, the art has. I won't say that. I will back that up just a second. I care about what the art is, but the fact there's cowboy hats in it is meaningless. You know what I mean? It's like, does the card do what I need it to do for this cube? And in this case, I know you had mentioned Oliphant, kind of thing. And Oliphant is a pretty mid card. I'm basically looking at it as it's a fetch land. Honestly, that's why it's in the cube. And yes, it's a big body that you can cast, and or you can
reanimate, because you can reanimate it.
But you can. I know. It's in there. So I love self-binning creatures. I've been on record saying that. I love them. They're my favorite. But anyway, it was there to help fix mana. In all honesty, first and foremost.
Agreed, 100%. Here's the thing that I've tested over the last times. And again, we joked last night. I went 0-4 last night. Not my fault in the first one. Second one was another pilot. We're not going to say his name, but it started with Chris and it ended with Shin. But
Christian.
Yeah, because it wasn't me. I didn't play. I watch y'all play.
I tested 5-color good stuff. Let's not even call it 5-color good stuff. Let's call it 5-color. Really pushing it through intent. I pushed it through 2 drafts. You and I did a 1v1. It was successful because I wasn't overly challenged at the time. And then last night, I got my teeth kicked in because I was challenged around the board. But at the same time, I wanted to know, could I not, and you may not have noticed, and it was through intent. I always do this with everybody's cubes. Your theme is go on an adventure, foretell, plot, warp, Gonti, some form of making a stack in front of your playmat. I did not do that whatsoever. Last night wasn't successful. It could have been for a lot of reasons. I don't know. Like, I think I overly invested last night, if I'm being truthful, and I think a better pilot could have pushed it a lot further. We had 2 bad pilots who were both like Porkins trying to attack the Death Star, but pour one out for Porkins. But Porkins didn't make it. Spoiler. You've had time. It's in 1977. Yeah. But all right, everybody do a moment for silence for Porkins. Everybody pause.
I'm sorry.
All right, sorry, Porkins.
It's all.
but so what I'm trying to say is I wanted to know if I could not play your cube. And I didn't have as much fun because I'm embracing the staples. And I find this in every cube. People do this even in my cubes. And they'll go for the counter spells and the preordains and the lightning bolts and the Oliphants and the Troll of Khazad-dûm, whatever that troll's from.
Khazad-dûm.
And reanimating it and all that. And I didn't get all these pieces because I'm being challenged for it because it's being distributed because it's in there. That is a challenge when you're trying to make a theme resonate. You have to have a certain amount of glue cards. You got to have these things to kind of pull you together. Your cards start getting a little clunky if you want to have some powerful magic because you're a powerful magic player. But there is a dichotomy here, and I have pushed it twice now without playing the theme of your cube. I also equally did this, for example, in our good friend Shoop's cube, 6-color Calamity cube, where he's declaring all these Eldrazi, and I didn't bother with the Eldrazi. I just played the powerful Legacy Magic. Actually did quite well with it. That is always a challenge with us whenever we're trying to pick our cards, give game pieces and choices to a player. How do we can't tell them what to pick, but you are giving them the option of playing Legacy Vintage Cube. There is a degree of that in this cube. Okay, that's my argument.
I'll say, first of all,
I was going
to say, first of all, if you are relying on very, very well-known high power value cards such as Reanimate as the glue pieces for your good stuffy kind of deck, that is an incredibly dangerous and limiting lane to go down because those cards are going to be very, very contested. And my assumption would be that in a cube that is mechanically sort of brought together, that the mechanics where the decks that have those mechanics that they're focused on, they're probably just going to perform better than, I hope that I get those pieces that are going to be highly contested, right?
A high synergy deck in this, if you build it where they work together, is going to do better.
Yeah.
And that's just what I've noticed as we've drafted this a few times now. The decks that lean into the bit and work with what I've worked with the tools, even using quote-unquote subpar cards, there's a Conceited Witch in here. That's an adventure card that puts, some roll token on something. But it's a card that works well in the environment because of the other tools that are in there. It rewards you for you can have spells that reward you for casting from exile and things of that nature. So there's things that make tokens when you cast from exile, draw you cards, do a whole host of things when you cast from exile. So it's like, I understand that you can try to do just the power level cards, but I don't know if I'd recommend it. You know what I
I've
mean?
tried
It's just,
it. I have tried
Yeah.
it, and then I also, again, going back to your Graveyard Shift Cube, which you're going to put in again this year. Again, highly recommend everybody vote for that as well too.
I would like to. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's another genius level cube. It just beats me. I don't know why you build these cubes that just trying to break Anthony all the time, but you do.
You can't sit there with that artifact cube of yours and start bitching.
I
about
don't
that
play
kind
it.
of stuff.
I build it.
Okay, actually, and I want to follow up with. Because this, especially for this part of conversation, I think is very relevant. Gavin Verhey was on our show recently. He actually mentioned with one of his new cubes that he likes to see 5 to 6 decks out of the 8. You know, for argument's sake, you've got 8 drafters. 5 to 6 of those drafters that he likes to see drafting those on theme, on mechanic kind of decks that are part of the cube's construction. And he also likes to see 2 or 3 creative, and maybe there's going to be a good stuff and a bit more mid-rangey of a deck that's thrown in there. So would you tell me where you think that those kind of decks fall into this cube in general?
Well, I think I also really, really enjoy seeing that as well. And I was very much in agreement when I heard him say that on that episode, because I love it when people try to break the cube. I love when people just try to do things that I didn't think of. You know what I mean? I absolutely adore it. Like, oh, I didn't think those cards would work as well together as they do. And oh my God, please do it. If you can do, Anthony, I applaud you for trying. I do. I really do. But it's a matter of I just don't know that deck in this cube will do as well. That's it might. I mean, sometimes good stuff.
I mean, we've only had 2. We've had a 1v1 subset where I wasn't contested.
Yeah,
that's true. We did like a Houseman draft type deal or whatever we did, Minneapolis draft.
Yeah.
I don't care. I draft from somewhere, and then from some state, some city. But then we also did an 8-player draft. So last night I attempted to take it on, and I kept telling you it's almost coming together. But then there were some minor pieces and some subpar components. What I was trying to do. You have some cards in this cube that I particularly like. I just don't know if they fit the theme, but I'm in love with them, so I'm not encouraging you cutting them. But like Railway Brawler, this card's insane. I don't even need to read the card. Look it up for yourself. But essentially, it's like a 5-drop that basically is a giant rhino that says whenever a creature enters the battlefield, put that many 1/1 counters on equal to its power or something like that. Don't care.
It's equal to its power. It also has plot for 4, and more importantly, it has a cowboy hat. So that is actually.
And I haven't cared about the cowboy hat. Back to the theme, the overarching theme. It's interesting. I'm going to digress a little bit, but the art hasn't detracted. Your artistic choices haven't detracted from the overarching theme because these cards are so complex on an adventure, foretell, plot, warp. I don't even care. I don't even have time to study the art and go, oh, that's a stupid looking card, like a lady looking left holding a lamp with a bow on and cowboy hat. I don't care. I don't have time for that. I'm too busy reading, like, what the hell does foretell do? After you foretell a card, you can place a card in the exile card here. You may cast it at a later turn for its foretell cost. It says later turn. Oh, how many people have cheated with foretell and foretold it and then immediately played it because they've got 9 mana sitting up? Why not? I'm going to go ahead and cast this now. No, I think, getting to my point, I actually think that this cube is going to have more angle shooting in this cube than any other cube ever made, and it's not going to be through the fault of the player. They're not going to realize what's happening. Could you imagine a new kid comes sitting out? This is pre-release night. Call him Anthony because that's how I play every time. And I'm going to play your brand new cube here. I'm so excited about that. I heard about this cool Exile thing. I like Commander. I know what the command zone is. I'm going to sit down and do this. Do you know how rocked someone's going to get if someone has the potential to angle shoot here and then to bend the rules of Magic? Because a lot of these cards aren't. Read the card, explains the card is a very important statement. We all know this card. I love this cube because it is challenging my brain. It makes my brain boil. But I will tell you that this should have never been a bar cube, and this certainly doesn't do read the card, explains the card. This is not even close to that.
Cube anymore, so you don't have to worry about that.
Can't. If anybody says that at CubeCon, you are wrong.
It is not a bar cube now.
It should have never have been. Again, it was up in Harvard. Ben Affleck was there. You like apples, dim apples. This is that cube.
Hey, I didn't know what I was doing. When I first put this together, I honestly did not know the monster I was creating when I did it. I thought I was just we're just going to plot things. We're going to cast some Exile. It's going to be cute. It's going to be fun, kind of thing. And just it turned into a whole thing. So it's like I had no idea what I was getting into when I first started this cube.
I think I'm the one been porting it out the most. The rest have been pretty resilient and silent about it. Most of them are just like, whatever, I like
That's so unlike you, Anthony.
Yeah, but
I can't believe that.
Well, I do a podcast, and I do want to shout from the high heavens at the clouds, but there is a lot going on here. The others won't say they don't know. The others aren't going to openly admit in our group, like, this is confusing, this is complex. Got to have somebody that's willing to say, I feel stupid playing this cube, but I'm willing to do it anyways.
Welcome to my life all the time. Okay,
that's just like a Tuesday. That's just like a Tuesday.
That's how I feel every day. Every day.
But
I want to. Can we talk a little bit?
I want to add this before I
make.
that's what I want to do before I don't want to scare everybody off from this cube. This cube is not intimidating. This cube is fascinating.
I think the opposite.
I don't find this cube intimidating. I just know this cube challenges me. I'm sorry for interrupting
Not
you,
at
but it's
all.
important because I feel like I'm bashing the cube. I'm doing the opposite. I'm telling you that this cube, so normally we hang out, we drink beer. I don't want to drink beer when I'm playing this cube. I actually want to be a better Magic player, and this is the first cube in our group that doesn't feel like I'm on rails. Like, of all of our cubes, like, the lines are not clear. They're actually really vague. They're dotted.
Yeah.
And the choices are really complex, but you do allow for a certain amount of complexity. Like, if I just want to take Troll of Khazad-dûm and bend it in my yard and reanimate it, which I actually don't like, by the way. I'm telling you that openly. I don't like that line of play is there because it's not in alignment with the other complexities you have. It's almost like, are you smarter than a fifth grader? It feels like this show sometimes, right? Jeff Foxworthy?
Yeah, I've never watched that show, so I'm not.
It'll make you feel
either,
stupid. You know they rehearsed. Don't watch it. You'll feel really stupid.
I mean, it's an American show, right? Okay, so I grew up in Europe, and so I know all about every European, all the popes, all the British monarchs, every single one of them. So, sorry. Education system in America.
You got a segue better than that.
The education system in America is failing you. In Europe, we know everything.
William Hastings.
I'm just kidding. Yeah, William, exactly. Shot a bow? Did he shoot a bow?
He got drawn and quartered.
That's Robin Hood. All right, let's talk about complexity and power level, right? So I think, first of all, I'll make this statement, and Chris, obviously, as the curator, I want to see how you feel about this. I feel like bringing complexity into a cube can be simplified for the player by card familiarity, right? So a couple of examples that we've got, and again, always go to the show notes. I'll look at Uro, Titan of Nature's Wrath, which is a 3-drop 6/6 that has escape. I'm looking at something like Flage, Titan of Fire's Fury, which also is a 3-drop and has escape. I don't think that necessarily those cards are complex from a mechanical standpoint, can be incredibly complex from a decision-making standpoint. But again, I think just having that familiarity with the card, certainly anyone with familiarity with a vintage cube, you can maybe lend that as to making the cube a little simpler for more franchised Magic players.
Yeah, what I wanted to do was, first of all, I will say this: there are some very powerful cards mixed in with this cube. There's definite power outliers, definite cards that we have on a watch list for sure.
Yeah, like do you like apples? How about dim apples? It's there right now. I'm looking at it.
Yeah, the Bloodbraid Challenger is the boogeyman right now in the cube. It's very powerful, and for good reason. There, people are running vintage cubes, but people also run Uro, Flage, and Troll as well. But one of the reasons I decided to just try and spread the power level throughout all the cards. Like, another one that's really good in here is Cosmogrand Zenith. Another one, I even put Ragavan in here because, again, these are on theme because they cast. If you're casting multiple spells, you're making tokens, you're putting counters on things. Ragavan casts from your opponent's library from Exile. And that is on theme because there is a spell theft deck in there, which is in the Grixis colors. And so that's what I've done is I want people to be able to recognize cards. I don't want there to be just all these off-the-wall, weird, flat power level cards that everyone has to read. I want you to go through and look, okay, I know about eight or nine. I know 8 or 9 of these cards really well. The other 7 I need to read. But it's not opening a pack after read all 15. Yeah, you know what I mean? It's like, and that's exhausting. And
There's only one card that I have challenged from the get, and it's Bloodbraid
I
Challenger.
totally agree with you. It's very powerful.
Cascade's actually a fantastic way of playing cards from Exile. Like, this is embracing the theme. I love Cascade. I'm a huge fan of Cascade. But after seeing the play patterns of this particular card, which I do embrace Cascade as a theme in my two-headed giant cube, because it's a lot of fun. It's kind of like, it's just very splashy. It's a very splashy mechanic. Some people don't like it because
it's random.
It's random, but it's neat whenever you got another opponent, and Stu and I are just it's kind of like Gola, spin that wheel.
I like
it's a vibey.
I love my slot
thing.
Machines.
It's
okay?
it's a slot machine.
I love my
play.
magical slot machines. I love my Grenzo Dungeon Warden kind of effect.
It's fun. It's fun magic.
Cascade is, buddy. I love it.
Yeah, it feels very like a gambler, and I like that. However, Bloodbraid in particular for 3 colors, and Gruul, you get a 4/3 Cascade Haste. If it didn't have Haste, it would be less of a problem. That's kind of where this starts. Escape for 3, and then Gruul again. Exile 3 of the cards from your graveyard, and it just... So I actually had called this one numerous times, and last night our good friend Bill, while playing again, goes, well, how'd you win, Bill? Well, Bloodbraid Challenger. So... my question for you is, I shout a lot of my ideas out. I'm very premature in my negativity or negativity of shouting out cards to you. Or it's based on vibes, based on experience, and I do a lot of my theory crafting in my head. I think you do that too. Like, I think about lines of play a lot more in my head than I should. That's just how my brain works. That's how my puzzle solving works. I just work these situations in my head. I kind of already had labeled this card before this card even hit the ground, and then it did. And it's got a lot to do with the Trigon Predator scenario, where a card that looks very benign, but then keeps sweeping over. If you can't stop a flyer, it's going to keep blowing up a piece, blowing up a piece, blowing up a piece. And as we've progressed and learned more about this podcast through the knowledge being shared, the wealth of knowledge from other people coming on the show and their feelings, and then Stu over here, outing me about that artifact cube and so on and so forth, I've learned a lot. And so when I see a card that keeps flopping, and on average, it's been 2 times now where this card hits for 3 times. You kill it, great, and I know the counter argument is you should have exiled it. I realize that. I know where we're going to go with this. Well, hear me out for a second. But the environment is a slower pace. These games are normally turn 7, 8, 9, right? This isn't like the aggro that you would think that sweeps a board by turn 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is no vintage cube. This card has the ability to well up a graveyard a lot cleaner than most cards typically would, making it a constant, like, that spin that wheel goes a lot less cute at a certain point with these type cards. And it's the haste mechanic that actually is the problem. Like, what is it? Bloodbraid L feels very safe. It hits a lot lower, but now you're looking at anything 4 mana value and below. It is just triggering nonstop.
Okay, I'll chip in here. I really like this card. Okay,
I do too.
So
but
obviously,
I don't know about here.
Well, okay, and so here's why, and I'll offer this as an opinion as to why I believe Anthony has such vitriolic hatred for Bloodbraid Challenger in this cube. Right? You're first of all, it's a 5 CMC. You're getting the haste. The Cascade can be nothing. You might get a counter spell.
Yeah,
you might
it could be
get,
nothing.
You might get. You're right. You might get something that doesn't have any kind of significant effect. The reason why this is problematic, and I judge this in the space that I do with Flage and with Uro as 2 other escape cards, is because of, and Chris, you've got your fingers up, and that's exactly right. It's the fact that you only have to exile 3 other cards from your graveyard, whereas Uro and Flage are both 5. And that 2-card difference and the repetitiveness in which you can continue to bring Bloodbraid Challenger back, you don't need that Cascade to hit every time. No. I almost feel that is gravy on this card. And if you like in this situation, you're talking about 3 times that you get to cast this card in one game. If you Cascade once, it's not great, but okay. If you Cascade twice into something relevant, that is absurd value. 3 times, and your win percentage just got to be absolutely off the charts. So for me, I can see why this would be an incredible watchlist card. And I will also say that I think just saying, well, you should have exiled it,
or you should have hit the graveyard.
That's a little bit of a stretch.
It's a very niche form of removal at this point. To deal with this.
It's a niche form of removal, I think, in general.
Right. When that first happened, there wasn't a lot of exile effects in the cube. Okay, so I've added some since then. I'm keeping Bloodbraid Challenger in for now because I'm the opinion I need to see this happen way more than that one time. Okay, it's just like, and I know it happened again last night. I know.
And I called it 35 minutes in advance.
Oh, Jesus. Okay, yeah. So it's like, oh, Jesus. So, so, but what we've done is where I'm trying to think of other ways that we can give tools, not just against Bloodbraid, because yeah, Bloodbraid's a boogie. But if I remove Bloodbraid, there's still something else going to slot into the place of that power level. So I have to figure out ways of giving other decks tools to handle that kind of situation, because there's always going to be things you're going to be able to double, triple spell in this cube pretty easily with plot and ways to reduce costs. There's a whole lot of enablers that reduce costs of exiled spells and things. So we were looking at adding things like Mind Break Trap, or something like Summary Dismissal, things that will exile all the spells on the stack. Stuff like, or like another one that was pointed out, which I really do like and didn't consider, was Force of Despair.
Which I have a copy for you waiting. I'll find it tonight.
I should have an extra. I'll let you know if I need it, but I have an extra copy as well. Also, Settle the Wreckage was also floated as another potential add. And it's like, these all seem to be things that could help with this. I'm not sure how many of them I'm going to add, but I definitely, and also things like, we think free counter spells should be in the cube. And they weren't at first, but I do believe they should be in the cube. Like Force of Will, possibly Daze, things like that should probably be in the cube. So, especially because a lot of those big mana spells are mana intensive. They're mana intensive, so you're going to cast them as soon as you can. But if you have things like Daze and stuff to stop it, or some of these other free counter spells, I think it'd be better.
I agree wholeheartedly, because you've unlocked like this whole new layer of playstyle, right? Literally, you're pulling stuff from Exile that even they're not in your grip. I can't say how many cards you have in your hand. You go 5. I'm not accounting for the other 2 that are sitting in front of your playmat, maybe 3, maybe 4, who knows, right? They can compile, right? And I have no idea what they are. And that is a level of complexity, so it does create this interesting... I like it. But I am a huge fan of free spells in this particular cube because they challenge... that's kind of what I was telling you before we started. I pregame and said, I think I've changed my mind about Bloodbraid's Challenger. Because Path to Exile doesn't work against it the way you want it to, back to my 5-color utility slot that I try to do playing Vintage Cube. I was trying to do Legacy in here. And those cards were highly contested. And I was getting my hand stripped last night. And I was being challenged. Whereas we did 1v1, I didn't feel so challenged. It's a theory I was testing. But they did distribute, just in one little case study we did. I think it's interesting because... adding in these type cards, they're very niche. Like Summary Dismissal costs 4 mana. It's blue, colorless. Exile all other spells and counter all abilities. It's wild. And it doesn't look good on paper, but it's making you kind of wake up this idea of, well, I want to bring in some staple-ish cards, some ones that kind of gotten lost in binders, like Force of Despair. I mean, I looked at it for a while for my Power Vintage Cube. That's probably... 6-7 years ago. I thought it'd be neat, but nobody ever played it and didn't have a purpose. But now, it's actually back on point with your theme of playing these external game pieces, different zones in the game. Creates a whole new layer. The onion's gotten a little bigger here. And it's going to kind of push people away from that. I just play Counterspell. I play Bolt. I play Preordain. I play... And going back to Ragavan, when you're talking about Ragavan, I want to put a little pin in that. It's fascinating to me that Ragavan is not the threat that it is in a Vintage Cube. It feels different because your aggro package isn't your aggro package in here. Ragavan is a game piece that says, on theme, exile a card, play an opponent's card. It feels uniquely different in this environment. It's not what it would... Yeah, I think you got 2 cards off of me. And, I kind of...
No, they were lands. I couldn't do anything with it.
I could boo that a little bit. I wanted to know, but it never felt like you were dominating me with Ragavan in this game, not once. It just felt like you're taking my deck, because that is your theme, is going back to that sub-little theme you're running, which I love. You're running like this gaunty, almost like a theft of the other person's deck at the same time, right? Like you have, what is it, Villainous Wealth?
Oh, I run Villainous Wealth. It's in the cube.
One of my favorite cards of all time.
I will say this. Ragavan is obviously a very powerful card early on. The theft from the top of the deck is nice, but actually I would almost argue that in a slower environment, just the fact that you're creating treasures every time you connect is almost just as much, if not more, of a powerful ability, because you get it down early, and if your opponent has 5 and 6 drops, okay, you're probably not going to be able to do a whole lot with those, but then creating those treasures and being able to accelerate your own plays by turn 3 or 4 is probably a more powerful effect. And I will also say this, I'll go very briefly back. I'm not a huge fan of cards like Mindbreak Trap or even Summary Dismissal.
I'm not either.
Outside of cubes that contain storm-based effects, right? Obviously, Mindbreak Trap and Summary Dismissal.
They're very sideboard out the gate.
I don't know if I would even say sideboard.
Will they beat Cascade?
They will beat Cascade because you play the spell and then the Cascade spell goes on the stack.
Yeah, that's very niche.
They're only really good in a cube
there's not very much Cascade.
Unless you have to have a lot or multiple things on the stack for those things to really shine. And in the case of Mindbreak Trap, if you've just cast your Bloodbreak Challenger and then you've got one other card, then you don't get to play it for free. Now, the fact that you only have to pay 4 to counter 2 spells is kind of on point with a couple of mana leaks or a couple of counter spells or whatever. But again, I kind of feel like the niche of that being incredibly relevant would mean that I'd rather have something more aggressive.
Whereas Force of Despair doesn't feel weird to me at all. It feels very natural to the cube. For anybody that doesn't know, Force of Despair, for 1 colorless and double black, you get an instant. If it's not your turn, you may exile a black card from your hand rather than pay the spell's mana cost. Destroy all creatures that entered the battlefield this turn. That hits a lot of the I'm plotting, the things that they've been kind of saving up for, right? The foretelling, whatever they may be doing. It gets a lot of things. It's a little mini board wipe, but I'm a huge fan of this. This feels so natural. Mindbreak Trap feels very forced, literally. Force of Will was a card we talked about that feels natural here. People are like, I understand a lot of people think that free spells are not fun, but think about what's happening. You have a bunch of unknown game pieces outside of hand count. Like, say you Inquisition someone, which is in the cube, or any of these type things, and you've interacted with their hand, you still have, before the opponent, sometimes 1, 2, or 3 unknown game pieces that you simply aren't going to be able to know. Your hand knowledge is unknown, right? And even the Gaunty stuff where they've taken your pieces, this is unknown stuff they've taken from you. It creates a level of variance in the game that's just really fascinating. There's unknown zones, like a lot of components of unknown that even if you get probed them, you just won't know what the hidden pieces are on the other side of the battlefield, which adds a layer of depth. That's why I'm like pro Force of Despair more than anything else on this list, because it handles the unknown. And it's not sideboarded. It's not a sideboard card because the actual gameplay style you're embracing is someone's plotting something out or a rhino's entering the battlefield and you can't deal with it, right? I love Force of Despair for this cube.
I think it's good. I think that obviously, if we're talking about it from the perspective of Bloodbreak Challenger, they don't have to cascade into a creature spell, so you're not always going to kind of get that 2-for-1 value.
Yeah, I can't
that you're
solve
hoping
everything,
to get.
but this feels more natural.
But you're supposed to solve everything, Anthony.
Yeah.
You have a podcast. You're doing the intro.
No.
Okay, fulfill your role here.
This cube is not meant to be solved, and whenever we go before like a CubeCon or Ravenfest, and you have players that are frankly better than us, just like when I take my artifact cube to these things, and people are doing stuff I didn't even plan on. Like, you got your little subset of like 12 to 14 players that have been challenging this, right? We're pressing this cube. You're already being pressed as a designer as is. What do you expect whenever you open it up to a wider market?
Follow on with the conversation about Force of Will. Force of Will, we actually talked many, many moons ago on our podcast about Force of Will being a scaling counterspell. Okay, and the reason why it's an incredibly powerful but balanced card in things like Vintage Cube is because you have those incredibly explosive turns early on where you kind of need those balances, those checks and balances in order to, prevent someone just going absolutely ham in the first couple of turns. Where do you, in this cube, see blue as an identity and as a color to where that Force of Will and kind of, because it's not a 0 cost, right? You're exiling a card from your hand. It has to be a blue card, paying a life. Okay, it is what it is. But I feel like I would like to understand your perspective of how that can fit in as far as the spell itself with the grand nature of the cube, but also with how critical is the resources of just having that as an option to ditch a card, and how viable is it? How damaging can it be?
Okay, so early on in this cube had Blue's been a problem for this cube. Like counterspells in particular have been a problem with this cube since the beginning. And one of the reasons that it's an issue is because I was running things like memory lapse. I believe counterspell is still in there, but I was running like memory lapse, mana leak, and a few others that the usual suite of counterspells that you see in a cube. The problem with those cards is you hold them up. You're the blue player. You're holding up this mana leak on turn 2. Well, the second player's turn 2. What do? They foretell a card. They just time walked you. Basically, that is the issue that we ran into many times.
Happened to me last night twice. I literally passed turn with that hand disclosure idea on my brain, like the traditional Magic that I'm used to playing, and 2 times I opted to hold up counter Magic, and they just did something completely different.
I will follow that up. I dislike massively, and this extends not from Cube but even to Commander as well. And I've had Commander decks and Cube decks where I've taken those counter spells and I've thought, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to play this card turn 1. I'm going to play this card on turn 2. And then on turn 3, I'm going to counter their spell. And then on turn 4, and I have this flow of how the game's going to go. And 90% of the time, it just doesn't work out like that. Again, going on to the Vintage Cube where you need that sort of ability to be able to interact in the very early turns. Most of the times where I'm doing that with a Force of Will, I'm doing it to protect my own fast gameplay in order for me to be able to generate those advantages. But I feel like so many times, and again, that resonates with me so much, they're just dead cards. You're just time walking yourself. You're just sitting there with a 2 mana, 3 mana card that your opponent doesn't care about because they've got enough things to do and enough ways to generate presence on their board that they don't matter.
You actually brought up a point that you explained to me something last night that they're not replacement effects. What was the unique rules that I was arguing? Like, how the hell is people supposed to know that?
So you can't when you foretell a card or plot a card, you can't stifle that ability. These they're not activated abilities, so they're like game effects. This is just something that is a game action. It's not something it's not like a triggered ability or an activated ability. It's not something you can interact with in the same way that you can. Now, when they cast a spell from foretell, or it triggers something when they foretell it, then you can interact with that. But the act of foretelling, the act of plotting, you can't interact with.
I argued with you because you have some cards specifically that have stop triggered ability, stop activated ability in the cube. And my point of argument is when you go to a broader audience, that I know they're going to make mistakes, but what's going to happen is this is just as frank as I can say, the cube is complex, and you're a complex Magic player, but you're assuming that your audience is also going to understand this entire narrative. And it's a thing that people deal with, right? And what I believe is going to happen is I have this dragon. I think it was like a weird 6-drop with an adventure on it that says counter, target activated or triggered ability. And it might be my win con on the second side of the adventure, right? But you're going to foretell a card. And I'm not going to understand this nuance of Magic in a big game event. This is going to happen. And I'm going to reveal to you, I'm going to trigger that activated ability. And you have to explain to me now, this is a game action within Magic, and it's not this unique rule set. This timing rules don't apply. This isn't a thing. This is part of having a cube with a level of complexity that you've adopted.
No, I totally understand that. And the thing about it is, in all honesty, that's how we learn. It's like we're going to have to learn somehow, and I can't account for what people don't know. I can hope that maybe they have some mild understanding of the rules, and that is a niche, is not something that's going to come up very often. Because guess what? I'll have to look that up because I put that card in there, not really thinking about that interaction. I've had this. I researched this, Anthony, before you started doing all this, so I had to research it because hell, I didn't know. So, yes, I agree with you. That could be a problem, but I also can't really account for everything.
So, my counterpoint to that is,
card that does this.
Again, anybody listening, he's like my bestie, so I'm challenging him here. I'm going to do it out loud. Yeah. What I was arguing with you is you should not have cards in there that have stifle effects, despite all the great things they do, because I think they signal a different line of play within the cube. They're going to create gameplay errors. It's prone to it. It's going to happen. And because I'm going to be sitting across from you. You're my opponent. We're in a big event. And I'm going to take a game loss. We're going to have to call or reset the game or judge. That was something I brought up last night. And I know we have to learn. But think about it like under the duress of a 55-minute timer at Ravenfest. And I'm chasing whatever. I'm coming to hang out. Just make believe with me for a minute. And you're introducing yourself to this idea. And you have this card that has this very specific, what you believe to be true line, right? It's signaling you to do the thing. This is something that every designer should think about. And it's telling you should do it. That unique interaction where you have the intimate knowledge of how it actually plays out as a designer doesn't necessarily transfer to your players. And I think that's something that we can't openly dismiss as game designers whenever we present these things.
I will say this. The one stifle effect that is in there, it does say counterattack vector triggerability from a non-creature source. So I guess I see where you're coming from, but it's like, I again, that is going to be, I don't see a huge issue with it. I don't. It's like, it's going to happen. Okay. But again, I'm not going to sit here and put up the what is it they call it, the gutter rails on the on the bowling lane. You know what I mean? It's like I can't do that for every situation. So and I understand that, but I it's an adventure card. I need to have adventure cards in here. Trust me. So it's like
that's ultimately what I need you to say, because it's a limited game piece. You don't have a lot of adventure. Yeah. We've been to Eldraine twice. We've had adventure. Is that correct? 2 times, right?
Yeah, we've been to Eldraine twice, and unfortunately, there's a lot of stinkers in there. The adventures. There's a lot of ones that don't do anything.
A lot of damn good ones as well.
Right, and so it's like I had to kind of take the good with the bad. And yes, I realized this could be an interaction. I thought about this beforehand.
Because Anthony yells it every time he sees you. All I'm trying to do, ultimately what I want to get out of this episode is demonstrate the complexity, right? And how, I mean, we talked about, like, how do you deal with the Ravager that keeps coming out on repeat, right? And you keep dealing with this. I've actually come around and say it's not a bad game piece. What I'm challenging is thinking about your broader audience, right? Or, as May has promoted, and you have actually promoted, bringing the rest of your game up.
Okay, I'll present a counterpoint to your counter argument, right? You, Anthony, are a cube curator. You are really not much of anything else right now. And I don't mean in life, I'm talking about Magic in general, okay?
I mean, I do have a nail in my tire on my Jeep right now.
I'm so proud
I
of
am
you.
that right now.
So happy for you. But, okay, and to Chris's point, it is a learning experience. Folks who play Standard, people who crack booster boxes and play Limited, people who play Commander very regularly, they are going to be used to these cards, much more so than hermits and like cube nerds that do nothing other than brew cubes and kind of focus on their little areas of Magic that they enjoy. And I will say, as much as some of those Commander games that we had back in the day that I was like, man, I don't really want to keep track of all these pieces. If I was forced to do so because I wanted and enjoyed playing a lot of Commander, or I played a lot of Limited or other formats, then that is going to come organically, that understanding and that knowledge, right? And not just that, but also the understanding that Magic is not what it was 10, 15 years ago, where you only have a very small number of simple zones to keep track of. Nowadays, you do have your battlefield and your hand and your lands, and then the exile zone and the graveyard, but as well as the plot and the adventure and all this other stuff. So I don't disagree that for some audiences, something like this could seem incredibly alien, but I feel like, again, going all the way back, Chris, you said that you wanted to develop this for your play group. It sounds like, other than,
Perfect.
Anthony's had some struggles.
I love it.
But you've loved it, and it sounds like other people are really enjoying it as well. So I think overall, something like this can be nothing but positive, and especially if you are looking to bring something into your group that, not to put too fine a point on it, that isn't just turn creatures sideways, what a fantastic way to do so.
One last thing, because we've kind of just attacked this cube viciously, because it's fascinating. Well, that's my job.
You have attacked.
Chris, you're putting this up for CubeCon. You're putting this up for CubeCon 2026.
I would like to. I would definitely like to.
Pitch it to me right now. Why are we doing this?
This cube is there for you to build a contraption, basically, where you will be casting spells from different places. learning how to sequence spells that and put them in the right order so you get the most bang for your buck. Can you get that 2/2 wolf because you got that that one Faldor lady out, or can you plan around having name Tomebound if you have him out, and Doc Aureus, played around with some airbending stuff and cast stuff for free. There's all sorts of things that I think people would really enjoy playing with this, and you're playing with some very powerful cards. There are things like Uro. There are things like Cosmo Grand Zenith. You're using some really good removal like Swords to Plowshares, hopefully Force of Will by the time this comes around and everything will come around. But, and you're animating spells. Reanimate's not in the cube, but things like Animate Dead, Necromancy, Virtual Persistence, those are all things that people have seen in other cubes. And I want this to be accessible in that respect. Like, you will see cards that you have played before, but in a different context. You will use them in different ways in this cube. And that's what I really like about it. And that it's like I said, sequencing in this cube is key. That is just what I have learned in playing this the few times I've played it.
Build your own cube Goldberg. And
it's definitely Rick Goldberg.
And listen, the cube is out there.
I love it. The cube is out there.
Love it.
I've been holding on to that.
Yeah. The cube is out there. Yeah.
6.5 minutes.
And then other than that, Stu's going to take us to the socials.
As always, a huge thanks to all of our Patreons, to David, Richard, Wilsey, Chris Fitzgerald, Timber Dragon, Brian Christensen, Keaton Schultz, Lord Justice, to Preston, and our own friend, Sam McKenna. Big thank you to all of you guys for helping us keep the lights on here at UberCube. As always, facebook.com/groups/MTGCube, about 1,200 or so members.
We have exceeded 1,200
1,200 plus. There you go. Yeah. Lots of great conversation going on over on the meta. If you want to support the show, you can use our inkedgaming.com/UberCube affiliate link for all kinds of cool products there. Playmats, dice bags, mouse pads, custom and large volume products available. If you want to get in on the conversation with us, you can find us at Twitter at UberCubeMTGPod or at Bluesky, UberCubeMTGPodcast.bsky.social.
And we're going to actually push our Patreon.
We are going to push our Patreon.
Our Patreon it's a Patreon. But if you like what we're doing and you're actually wanting to hear this content and you're enjoying it, and we're not going to do In the Arms of the Angel by Sarah McLachlan. we will, right? Do we have to get like Justin Timberlake to sing it? I don't know yet. I'll be in super debt. But I'm thinking we want to do more things. So to kind of catch everybody up, what we are doing. We have chosen, for example, to do UberCubeathon. It's going to be an invitational, and we actually try to shrink it down, make it less we're not making it public. But what I'm doing is a total charity roll. We're going to the people that are invited, we're going to be donating to actually join the event. Most of them are friends and family type situation, and we're going to be donating to the city of Nightdale. And we're actually doing Ravenfest, which is going to be a charity event, which is going to be going towards the city of Sanford. And we're going to try to do a lot more charity type events.
Community outreach,
whatever.
Absolutely.
Matter of fact, to expound upon that, when I talked to our good friends at Ravenfest, and I talked to the owner, Ryan, of the LGS, he's like, what do you want to support? And I said, children, vets, and people who are marginalized.
Absolutely.
Anybody that's marginalized or people who are in need right now. Because, if you haven't paid attention to the news, the world is struggling.
There's a lot of them.
There's a lot of people that need help. So that's what we're actually trying to do for our goal. So if you're wondering what your Patreon does, it allows us to do more of that. That's I don't want to use it for anything more flippant than that.
No.
That's it. No. We make jokes, but that's what we're going to use it for.
Yeah, you got it. So, again, patreon.com/UberCube. And if you've got ideas, if you want to come on and join the show or join the UberCube family and help us out, I'd be happy to hear from ideas that you guys have about what kind of events or other things that you would like to have as kind of a little Patreon bonus. So hit me up, either, DM me or, send us something in the Discord, and we'd be happy to listen and hang
I'll draw you a custom token. That's something I love to do. That's something I very much enjoy to do.
And you are an artiste. No doubt about it.
I'm an artiste, like artisanal cheese. Carry on.
All right, you heard it here first. Anthony is artisanal cheese. All right, I think we're going to go ahead and say what we always say here on UberCube, which is Happy Cubing.
Exile Files. Truth is out there.
The cube is out there.